You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about Jiu-Jitsu. I am your host, Lamar Smith. And today's guest is a purple belt who also trains at H2O Martial Arts, located in Oak Park, Michigan. Ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Coleman Jr.
Glad to have you. Glad to be here.
I thought I lost you for a minute.
No, glad to be here, man.
I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Appreciate you blessing us with your jiu-jitsu journey.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
it's been a tough one. So
well, let's hear about it, man. Go ahead and break it down, man. Let the people know.
Oh man. Whew. Well, as you stated, I am a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu up under Zachary Holston. I train at H2O Martial Arts and Fitness. That's in Oak Park, Michigan. I started off, man, I'm not even gonna hold you up. I started off not even wanting to be a jiu-jitsu practitioner, but it grew on me so much as I learned more about it. It's just the different techniques and the different ways that not only you can implement things into your game and implement things into everyday training, it just helped me so much to the point where I fell in love with it almost as much as I love wrestling, because that's what I started off as a wrestler. Mm-hmm. I've been doing that since I was 5. So when I was able to incorporate both together, I mean, it created a completely different element into my game and a completely different monster, you know? And I wouldn't be there without, the help of not only my teammates, but just the people who believed in me, such as yourself, my family. Man, there's so many people. Like I said, mainly my team, man. They lit the fire up under me. Guys like Zach, of course, my head instructor, Brian, you, even our master, Joe Muera, who I've had the pleasure of being taught by on several occasions.
Yes,
it's always a great learning experience when you're around him. Yeah, man, it's just been a long journey for me, and I'm still learning, so we'll see how things go as we progress.
Okay. So I guess when was that moment you you fell in love with jiu-jitsu?
Oh man. Well, there's a culmination of moments, but the one moment that stuck out the most to me is when I started to take this more seriously as a white belt. Mm-hmm. And we went to I think I was a 2-stripe or 3-stripe white belt at the time. And we were in a in-house Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament with all the other Muera schools that were participating.
Oh, you're talking about the one at Fresh Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, it was at Fresh Jiu-Jitsu. And I took first place in that tournament with pretty much all of my training partners that I had at the time there with me, as well as, some other people that had their part in, helping me prepare for it. Mm-hmm. But I focused so much on getting the takedown and remaining on top, because that's always been a big pointer for me, is to get on top, stay on top, and finish the fight. Mm-hmm. And with the majority of the people that I faced on this day, I realized me literally saying what I'm going to do and actually doing it, and it actually worked, lit a fire up under me. And then it kind of even lit more of a fire up under me after the fact when I saw when I saw Professor Fresh actually hold a seminar on everything that I did to everybody that was in his gym. That how I literally finished all of my opponents on that particular day. I kind of felt good about it because I was like, wow, he literally just showed everybody how to get out from up under me, or attempted to show everybody how to get from up under me. And, I felt kind of proud about that, not in like a big headed way, but more so like, okay, what I did worked.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I say that was a pivotal moment for me. And ever since then, of course, another moment that stuck out that I already knew I was taking this serious as I could, but I had a setback to where I was in another jiu-jitsu tournament and I broke my ankle, my left ankle.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
came back from it. Yeah, I know you were there for that too.
I
I
was right there up front.
yeah, I'm sure we can find a video of that and let people hear that pop, as they say. You know, but with that and how determined I was to get back on the mats, not only just for jujitsu, but just in general, because I hated not training. Like, that is something that I completely can say that I hate, not training. If I
Yeah.
can't train, I'll be in a very bad mood. Like, it stimulates the mind. So when I was able to get back on the mats after that injury, of course, I was super duper out of shape, and I was nowhere near where I was before I got on the mat on that particular day.
Mm-hmm.
So after a couple months, I was told that I would be testing, and I literally found this out like maybe 45 minutes before the class started. I was told that I had to be testing for my purple belt, and I was literally put on the spot because I had been testing for it as far as in my head and writing things down, but physically I hadn't tried to prepare myself for it yet. So I'm like, oh, pretty much I was like, oh shit, so am I ready for this? But I got out of my head and I said, I got this, I can do this. Of course it was hard, but I did it. And that was another moment for me that stuck out. And I was just like, I'm there.
Mm.
I have the potential to reach a goal that I want to reach, which is becoming a black belt. Like, because nobody can take that from me once I do it. One of the hardest belts to achieve is a purple belt.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to tell you, one of the hardest belts to achieve in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a purple belt. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that opportunity, but as I always say, I can only go up from here,
Right.
and we're only we're only in the beginning. Once you hit the purple belt, I mean, you're in the beginning of a completely new chapter, a new set of rules, a new set of techniques, and just altering your game once again. You never stop learning.
Never.
So that's where I'm at.
So earlier you said, you wrestled, and I assume you were talking like high school or more collegiate wrestling, right?
Yes.
Okay, so with you being a wrestler, like, how was it? I mean, if there was anything, like, how was it for you to, I guess, try to incorporate your wrestling with your jujitsu? I mean, obviously they share a lot of similarities, but what was your biggest take from your wrestling, background to help you with your jujitsu?
Well, for one, starting standing up, as far as like when you're rolling or doing a technique, that's I always go to my wrestling mindset on that, because that's when I'm attempting to secure the takedown. And most of that is wrestling based for me. But now that I've been able to look at the different takedowns that I can use as far as jujitsu goes.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to incorporate both into my stand up as far as jujitsu goes. Now, another thing that jujitsu taught me is to be comfortable on my back if I get taken down, because in wrestling, the worst place you want to be is on your back. When you're
Mm-hmm.
on your back and your opponent has you pinned to the mat, that means the match is over with and you've lost.
Right.
I had to get out of that at an early stage because I had to be more comfortable with, you know, playing guard or working from half guard or working from bottom side and things like that. And it was not easy, but I did eventually catch on. I mean, of course, like I said, I'm still learning, but I'm more comfortable now than I've ever been as it pertains to those positions.
Okay. Okay. Now, well, for people who are listening, earlier, like maybe like a couple episodes prior to this, but I know I touched bases on it before. As you see, this guy does trainings at H2O alongside with me and a couple other guests, and he was one of the MMA fighters that I was referring to when I was saying that we have fighters at the gym. So just to kind of touch bases on that, like, was were you doing MMA before you started training jujitsu, or was it kind of like
Yes,
after?
I was doing MMA way before I even started training jujitsu. Mainly what I would do is go to my high school with a couple of the other alumni there that graduated that also started training MMA, and we would hold like open mats at our or in our wrestling room pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And we would train in there for 2 or 3 hours, work basic striking and work situational positions and submissions and things, but no actual jujitsu training.
Mm-hmm.
So we were more so doing catch wrestling and not the actual jujitsu.
Okay. So, so okay, I guess so. Fast forward to when you started learning jujitsu in your MMA career, how much of a significance has it like improved your game once you start doing jujitsu?
Well, it's definitely allowed me to use more technique as opposed to strength because of the simple fact that wrestling is more so strength based, depending on what type of wrestling you do. There's
Mm-hmm.
three different styles of wrestling. There's freestyle, folk style, and Greco-Roman.
Mm-hmm.
I've done all three. I've well versed in all three of them. Now, the thing that differentiates them is certain positions that are allowed in Greco-Roman and freestyle aren't allowed in folk style.
Okay.
So what I was able to do once I was more fluent in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I was able to slow down because I would move fast and explosive because that's what wrestling was about being explosive.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to slow down and look at more options that I had as far as chokes, arm locks, leg locks, things of that nature, and if something wasn't working instantly, I would look back and say, okay, this isn't working like this. Okay, so let me ask my coach, why is this not working? And one of the main things he would say as it pertains to like chokes is let the poison work.
Mm-hmm.
And I never understood that until one day when I was rolling with one of my training partners, and I didn't realize that I had him in a choke. I believe it was a punch choke, and he wasn't actually moving as much, but he wasn't giving me any feedback. And then all of a sudden, he just went limp,
Mm.
and I didn't realize it. I'm like, "Whoa, hold on, okay, like, all right." And then I said, "Hey, are you all right? You good?" He ended up being okay or whatever, but it was just more so me learning that it actually works. I'm like, oh snap, this actually works. And me slowing down as opposed to doing everything fast, fast, fast benefited me.
Yeah, it definitely does teach you a lot of patience, because yeah, sometimes you'll sink a submission in and they might not tap right away, and you could be right there at the cusp of it. Like they can, like, oh, 2 more seconds, they probably would have tapped. But you thinking, okay, since it didn't work right away, you let it go, and then you just have a whole entire another fight on your hands.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. So uh, what was I about to ask? So okay, back to like jujitsu. We talked about you breaking your leg. You was because you were you were blue, right, when you during that tournament, right?
Yeah, I was blue. Yes.
Okay, you were blue. Um.
Yeah.
So okay, so minus the you breaking your leg, and then luckily you were able to get healthy, come back, and train and everything else. What has been the most, I guess, through your journey, what has been your most difficult aspect? Like
Say
what's
that
been
again.
so
You
basically,
kind of cut out.
oh sorry. So basically what I'm asking is, like, what's been your biggest challenge from the time you started training jiu-jitsu to like now? Not nothing physical, like breaking your leg or anything like that, but like what's been like, yeah, what's been like the most difficult part of your your journey, your jiu-jitsu journey?
I would say balancing it, man, because in trying to be successful in more than one thing, you have to make sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
I have on more than one occasion tried to balance my family life and my jujitsu life, or just training in general. We're not even going to say put just jujitsu out there. We're just going to say training in general. Trying to balance that has had its flaws, and that's I would say that was the biggest problem for me, because when you realize that something is changing your life for the better and somebody wants you to stop doing that for whatever reason, even if you are showing them that, hey, this is not only changing my life for the better, but it's putting me in a better mood.
Mm-hmm.
It's making me feel better physically,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, socially, emotionally. And not only that, like, I'm losing weight, and not only that, I'm learning. I'm learning more about the art of jujitsu and just martial arts in general every day. I'm a sponge to it, regardless of what rank I am or anything. You'll always be a sponge, because there's somebody out there that always knows more than you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And at the time where I was trying to balance both of my family life and my training life, certain people didn't approve of it and thought that I was just doing this as a hobby, even though at the time I was a pro MMA fighter and I was getting paid for this and things like that. Certain people would think that I was still doing it as a hobby, and that was by no means the case. You know, as a kid, even my parents will tell you, as a kid, when I was little, I either said I wanted to be the WWF champ, because that's what it was called at the time, a boxing champ, or a cage fighting champ. And I really believe that. And I still believe it to this day. I mean, and I feel like I'm well on my way to that. But I realized that certain people couldn't be on that journey with me because they were not on the same train that I was on.
I mean, that happens, man. A lot of people, it's just because people don't necessarily see or understand your vision or your dreams, though, as vivid as you do. So, you know it like stuff like that happens though. But the good thing is that you have continued your training, continued your jiu-jitsu journey, and your growth and everything else. But yeah, man, I definitely commend you on that, because it's not easy trying to balance your work life, your home life, your gym life, and if you have kids, you're trying to balance being a parent too. So yeah,
Yeah.
I understand all too well, man. I understand that all too well, all too well.
Yeah, man. And that's one thing. That's the one thing that kept me going, man, is my son. Like for everybody who knows me, they know that my son is literally my rib, my heart, my hip, whatever you want to call it, man. Like that's my dude. Even like that's my dude. Me and him bump heads sometimes, but Jacob, Dad loves you, but you my dude. You do hit a nerve at times, but hey, who doesn't? Because I know I hit my parents' nerves on a regular basis. But if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I'm at, because there's several times where I've thought about quitting, and I have to remember who's watching me.
Definitely.
I have to remember who is like, okay, Dad, you got to do this, you got to do that. And the one thing that stuck out with me about him is after I got my purple belt, and the kids were still virtual at this time, because this is like when COVID, everything was going on. They were still virtual. And this day in particular, the day after I got the purple belt, they had show and tell at school or whatever. So Jacob had the belt around his neck, hanging it like, or just across his neck or whatever. And his teacher asked him, was it a karate belt? And he got offended and was like, no, this is my dad's purple belt. He got it yesterday. He trained real hard for it, so I brought it for show and tell. And like, just me sitting in the other room listening to how passionate he was about it, it kind of almost brought me to tears, because I was just like, wow, if nobody else don't believe in me, I know this dude does.
So kinda brought you to tears.
Yeah, I mean, like a few drop, man.
Let's be real, kinda.
Yeah, listen, a few of them dropped for sure, definitely. My eyes was definitely watery, because I was just like, wow. And you as a father, like, it's just certain moments you have where you're like, okay, I made it. I made it as a father. Nobody else can't tell me shit. Excuse my French, but nobody else can't tell me shit. And that was one of those moments for me. Like, I don't care who says it. Like, Jacob will tell you, I am the best dad in the world. I don't know why he thinks that, but hey, my son is entitled to his opinion. And I mean, of course, I'm very stern, because that's how I was raised, but at the end of the day, I have conversations with him. I try to show him the right way. Hey, even he's in jiu-jitsu now. He had actually took a little break, but because he was in soccer, but he'll be back in full form either this week coming or next week. And yeah, man, it's just, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for him literally kicking me in my butt, man. He might not do it literally, but he does it.
So, I've been training with Coleman for like the past 5 years. So basically my whole entire jiu-jitsu journey, and I do have the honor to be his Jacob, his son's instructor. And
Sorry.
That's one thing I can't take from this guy. Like he definitely shows that he loves his son. His son loves him, because that's literally the only person he really talks about when he's around. And just to see their dynamic as father and son, it's awesome to see, man. Because we as black men, we don't see that a lot growing up. Just kind of like derail a little bit, but yeah, we don't see that a lot. So it's awesome to see you do that, man. I definitely commend you for that. So
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So like I said, his son is one of our kids, is our kids class, one of my students. So to me, because to me, I still remember the first day. My daughter put on her. My daughter Lamira put on her gi for her first class. So, and I ain't gonna cry. I ain't gonna lie. I cried. Not gonna lie. I cried more than
I feel that, man.
more than a few tears dropped. Like when I saw her put on that gi. But how was that moment for you when you saw your son like putting on his gi for the first time?
To try to put that into words, it was definitely, like I said, it definitely hit a soft spot. I'm gonna sit here and agree with you. I'm not gonna not sit here and agree with you and say that tears didn't drop, because they did. But on the same token, in the back of my mind, I wanted to know if he wanted to do it for him, or did he want to do it just because he saw me doing it, you know? And that was a big thing for me. Like, I don't want him to do it just because he saw me doing it, because you won't have your own love for it. I wanted him to do it because he actually wanted to try to do it. And I would ask him, because he's the one that brought it to me. And he was like, Dad, can I do jujitsu and kickboxing? I looked at him and I said, you sure? And, me and Jacob's mom have a real good co-parenting relationship. So I let her know, like, hey, Jacob asked me about uh, kickboxing and jujitsu. And the first thing she said was, I don't want my baby getting hit in the face. I said, listen, he'll be fine. I said, we talking about a kid who used to jump off the top of his bunk bed onto stuffed animals, thinking that he was a wrestler, because that is my fault, but that's a whole nother realm. Yeah, that's a whole nother realm. But when she was like, okay, if he wants to do it, then I'm in. I asked him again. I said, Jacob, you sure you want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
He said, yeah, Dad, I want to do it. I said, all right, cool. And I remember we both had on the same gi this particular day. And I took a picture. And I believe at the time I was a blue belt. And he said to me, Dad, when do I get my blue belt so I can beat you? I said, huh? He's like, yeah, when do I get my blue belt so I can beat you? I said, Jacob, that's what you wanted to do this for? He said, no. He's like, I know you got a blue belt, so that mean I'm gonna get one eventually, right? I said, yeah, eventually, but you got to train first. He's like, oh, okay. I said, but you got to start listening, and you got to listen to your instructors and things. And I think that happened, I want to say, like a couple months before COVID hit. Then we get back, and he actually starts, I'd say what was it, about maybe, you probably would know the timeline better than I would, but after COVID had that little wave or whatever, and people were allowed back in the gyms and things, he started coming in the gym with me again.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him again. I said, hey, Jake, do you want to do jujitsu and kickboxing? This time he said, Dad, I just want to do jujitsu. I don't want to do kickboxing. I said, oh, okay. I said, all right, well, let's go find you a gi. And I got him a gi, and hey, here we are. And I think I found out that he wanted to do it for himself when we were just sitting at home one day, and I asked him to tell me the rules from top. And, we got our 4 rules from top.
Mm-hmm.
And when he sat there and told me them without me helping him, that's when I was like, okay. All right. I think we got a winner, Coach.
See,
I think we got a winner.
I think we got one.
Yeah, I think we got one. But with me being an instructor as well, I had to get out of my own head, because I know if I'm ever his instructor, like let's say if I'm ever instructing a kid's class, in his case, I have to get out of dad mode. I have to make sure I'm in teacher mode, because with him, I'm always going to be in dad mode. I have to remove myself from dad mode at that time because he might feel a certain type of way if I'm yelling at him or something like that. So that's always been a dilemma within me. And of course I've been working on that, and like when we're at home, I work on stuff with him, like when we hit the bag or when I'm trying to show him how to. I've actually been showing him how to try to properly tie his belt by himself.
Mm-hmm.
He's working on it. He getting there. So, because more recently he was like, "Dad, Lamar said I got to learn how to tie my belt." I said, "Okay, well let's work on that now." And we've been getting there. He gets frustrated sometimes, but we getting there. I
Yeah,
say we like 75% of the way there.
because like just explaining to the kids like yeah, your gi is just as important as like technique. So if you don't know how to tie your gi, you can't train. That means you can't train. That means you can't learn nothing. If you can't learn nothing, that means you don't get new belts. So
Right.
yeah, we definitely
Absolutely.
made it a point to be like, hey, tying your belt, properly taking care of your gi, and all that other stuff is like highly, highly important. But yeah, I had that similar conversation with Lamira when we introduced kids class back, because she would want to come to classes with me, but some days I just be one of those. I just need a day where I can just really, really grind out, so I don't bring her because we have to leave because she has school and stuff. But when our instructor was saying we doing kids class again, I'm like, okay. So I asked my daughter, and she said yeah, she wants to train. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll we'll get you in class, whatever. So I'm thinking, just like thinking, okay, she's probably just doing this because she wants to be around me. She wants to, she just wants to be next to me or whatever. But
Right.
class, her first class, she was just like very, very punctual. She was very into it. Obviously she was nervous, but um, I'm like, okay, did you have fun? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, you want to come back? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I wasn't thinking none of it. She's a kid. She's gonna like this today, and then the next day she's not. But when I tell you, then like when she realized what days we go to training, like she would meet me at the door before I get home from work. Like I be pulling up, and she just stand at the door with her coat on. Like, we going to training today, Daddy? We going to training today? We going to training today? I was like, yeah, we're going to training. And it's like she fell in love with she's retaining so much stuff, and it's amazing to see. Like, I don't know. I guess you as a father and your son is I guess you want to say following your footsteps. Like, does it give you like that sense, like it's like that awesome feeling, but it's like, man, I wish I could have started when you started?
Yes, as it pertains to jujitsu, because, like I said, a lot of people don't know this, but like my journey just in combat sports in general started at a very young age. I'm 31 now. I started wrestling when I was 5. I started kickboxing when I was 13, but not seriously. But I started just, doing it as doing it not for more so training to be in MMA purposes, but just in training purposes
Mm-hmm.
at 13. I picked up jujitsu originally at 17, but I didn't do it traditionally. I did it no-gi. I was at a gym, one of the very first gyms I trained at, called Cooper's Gym. It's
Mm-hmm.
off of Warren, like off of Southfield Freeway in Warren. I was there, and I was learning just ground, what they called at the time ground game or ground work. That's what it was classified as on their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty much no gi jujitsu.
Right.
So, started that at 17, and then got in the cage at 18 and never looked back. I would say before I turned pro and before everything was sanctioned in Michigan, I had about 62 amateur fights. I
Oh
mean,
wow.
I fought 16 times in 1 year, man. It was crazy. And I was just like, shit, long as I didn't have a concussion and long as I wasn't, uh, long as I wasn't like cut open too bad or nothing like that, I just fought, man. It was like when we didn't have it. Michigan didn't have any rules at one point as it pertained to picking up a fight when you wanted to and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how that started. But then we turned pro, and here we are now.
Mm. Cool. So, back to the whole like, fatherhood. So like what would, because me and Lamira had this conversation, and I'm once again, I'm not too sure where like the idea came from, but when I did that tournament last year, and she saw all the kids out there, and she saw like she saw all these kids, and she's like, "Oh, daddy, they do jujitsu too?" I was like, "Yeah." Well, this is before like kids class came back at our school, and like she saw that, so she was like, "I want to do that. I want to do a tournament." So I'm like, I got excited. A part of me got really excited because I'm like, that's a dream. That's like a vision of mine to be like a coach to a kid that does jujitsu. But at the same time, it's like I would hate for her to, I would hate for her to actually get out there and she get hurt or whatever, and she just falls out of love with
Yeah,
it completely.
yeah, that's been a huge what if of mine
Yeah.
because I know eventually Jacob is gonna want to be like, "Hey, Dad, can I do a tournament?" And I'm not gonna tell him no. I rarely, especially if it's something I know that I can help with or I know that he can do without any means of hurting himself or harming anybody else or anything of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna tell my son no. That's just how I am. Because he don't ask for nothing too much. Like my last fight, I knew it wasn't. I thought it wasn't possible, but the last fight I had, he was like, "Dad, I want to go to your fight." I was like, "Dude, you know you can't. It's at the casino." He's like, "But Dad, I just want to walk out with you. That's all I want to do. Can I do that?" I said, "Look, dude, all I can do is ask, but I highly doubt they'll say yeah." He's like, "Well, can you just ask, please?" I'm like, "All right." So I asked dude, and he like, "Well, yeah, as long as he gonna be with somebody that's of age." I'm like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "All right, well, cool. I'm not gonna tell him. I'm gonna just bring him. I'm gonna just have whoever bring him." So I say all that to say, like, I was hesitant on even bringing him to the fights because I didn't want him to see something and see somebody get hurt real bad, and he be like, "Oh, Dad, I don't want you fighting no more," and this and that and other. Or, "Dad, I don't want to do jujitsu no more because I saw this person do this," even though it's not even jujitsu related. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's mainly straight MMA. And I didn't want him to see that. But to my surprise, when I actually went back there, or when they actually brought him to the back, he was telling me techniques that people was finishing people with. Like, "Oh, Dad, he got him with an arm bar. And then the other guy beat him with a rear naked choke." And like hearing him being excited about what he saw,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, all right, cool. So
I
I
mean,
still have that fear in the back of my head about him getting hurt, though. I'm always gonna have that because I mean that's just how fathers are.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm gonna be there. I mean, even when he was playing soccer, like certain stuff would happen, and I would, I'm there because like I never missed a soccer game or nothing like that. I was always there, even like when he would be running and then like maybe him and the guy that he's going up against are fighting for the ball and he might accidentally kick him in the shin and he goes down. I'm the first one out on the field to check on him, make sure he all right. He will literally sit up and be like, "Dad, I'm all right, I'm all right, I'm all right." But the dad in you is like, "Listen, no, I'm making sure you're okay."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
And I have those moments too with being an instructor and being a parent. Yeah, like back to where you were saying, like it sometimes gets hard to turn that switch. Like when we step on the
yeah,
mats, when we get classes going, I'm no longer her father, I'm her instructor. But excuse me. But yeah, when she have those moments, she'll fall down or whatever, and she's like crying. A part of me wants to be like, be that dad, like, oh baby, it's okay, da 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 da. But at the same time, it's like, nah, right now I'm her instructor. I can still be like comforting, but I can't be like that dad level of comforting. So,
right,
but yeah, man, like she, I'm the best thing I can say, to anybody listening to you and to like, personally myself, if you do have a kid that's, if you do jujitsu or any type of physical sport and they want to do it, let them try it. Let them try it. Let them get their feet wet. You never know what could turn out from it if they they did or didn't. But especially when it comes to like a martial art, especially if you're doing that martial art, it's a whole nother level of bonding with your child than I could ever imagine. Like having my daughter there at the class, and Coleman, I know you can contest to this too. It lights another spark in you, because it's like my child is here, my kid, my seed, my legacy is standing right here watching me. So I have to push harder, I have to push deeper, I have to make sure that they seeing me do this too, to make sure that to give them that push and motivation to do it themselves.
right. Yeah, because like with Jacob, even noticing that, you know, like Jacob saw you get your brown belt. Jacob was like, "Hey, Lamar brown belt now." I said, "Yeah." And the first thing he asked me, he said, "So, Dad, when you getting your brown belt?" I said, "I got a test for it, Jacob." I said, "Hopefully soon." I said, "I'm not gonna rush nothing. I'm still learning." The first thing he said, and I quote, he's like, "Well, you need to hurry up and get your brown belt so I can tell everybody at the school that my dad is a brown belt." I'm like, "So is that the only reason you want me to get it, is so you can tell everybody that your dad is one?" He looked me right in the face and was like, "Yep."
That kid's funny,
I
man.
didn't know how to feel about I didn't know how to feel about that. I really did not know how to feel about that, man. I was like, wow. Like, okay, so my son is like expecting all of this of me like quickly.
I mean, hey, I mean, he look, man. He knows he idols you, obviously, and he wants to see you achieve it, man. But it's funny you said that about him being at my brown belt test, and he's a good kid, man. But he picks, he wants to be like his dad. He wants to be a little bully. Well, nah, but so he picks on me and stuff. But like literally, this is probably like the first time Jacob walked up to me and was like, "Oh, you got your brown belt?" I was like, "Yeah," and I'm waiting for him to say something smart, but he was like, "Oh, that's what's up," and gave me a high five. I was like, "All right, okay, that was a little weird and different, but respect, respect."
He's like, who are you? He was like, "Who are you and what did you do?
I was
Who are you and what
like,
did you do with Jacob?"
I
Like,
was I was
man.
expecting to get kicked. I was expecting to get punched. Something like I thought he was gonna snatch the belt out of my hand. Something was gonna happen, but no, he was like, "Oh, you got your brown belt? All right, well that's what's up." I was like, "All right, man," but obviously that changed like the next class. So.
Yeah. He's like, "I'm gonna let you live off this one, but the next one, yeah, I got you."
So what's next for Mr. Anthony Coleman, man? What you got anything coming up? Any big plans? Any big events, man? You want to kind of share it to the people?
I got an MMA fight coming up on November 18th at the Motor City Casino. This is my 12th professional fight, and we're looking to go out of there getting our hand raised and putting on a show for the many people who come to support me, man. And from there, we just grow.
Yeah, man. So yeah, once again, my brother Anthony Coleman will be fighting John Clay at Motor City Soundboard for under clip promotion. So it is Friday, November 18th. I believe the doors open at what, like 7?
No, the doors open at 6.
Okay,
Fights
so
start at 7.
okay, yeah. So the fights start. Okay, the doors open at 6. The fights does start at 7, and it's always a stacked card. It's always entertaining through from the beginning to end. So yeah, I highly recommend you guys go check that out. You can either message me or you can message Anthony Coleman Jr. on Facebook. What's your Instagram name?
Bad Guy Coleman Jr.
Bad Guy Coleman Jr.
Jr.
Yeah, so hit him up on Facebook or Instagram to get tickets. Hopefully this episode will be out before the fight so you guys can see it. But yeah, man, I definitely appreciate you coming on, man. It's always been a pleasure and a blessing to train next to you, man. See you grow, see you shine. And yeah, man, we're gonna try to get this W on the 18th.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure to chop it up with you. You my brother always, brother in arms, and so we get it done, man. And here we go.
Yeah, here we go. But that's the end of today's episode. I would like to thank my guest Anthony Coleman Jr. once again for coming on the show, sharing some of his experiences with us. Please go and follow our Facebook and Instagram page to stay up to date on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live Jiu-Jitsu. Have a great day.